World News Today, brought to you by Continental Radio and Television Corporation, makers of Admiral Radio, America's smart set. By shortwave broadcast, direct from important overseas stations, as well as the leading news centers of our own country, CBS correspondents are waiting to bring you a complete report from the world's political and battlefronts. But first, here's John Daly.
On two widely separated fighting fronts, the United Nations today are moving into the final stages of their campaigns. The Russians are choking off Rostov, and in the Solomons on Guadalcanal, United States Army forces have outflanked the Japs to make a substantial advance. In North Africa, bad weather is once again holding up operations, but we are using that lull to good advantage, consolidating our positions in central Tunisia and checking the German drives around Pont-du-Phare. Now for the first direct report. Today, on today's major developments, Admiral Radio takes you to CBS Algiers' Charles Collingwood reporting.
This is Charles Collingwood in North Africa. Today I want you to hear one of the most remarkable stories of the war. But before I tell you the story, there's one bit of news that might interest you. Winston Churchill has visited Allied Force headquarters here for a while on his way back to London. Now here is the story. It's the story of Lieutenant Bernard Gillespie, an American bomber pilot from Gila Bend, Arizona. Briefly, this is the story. Lieutenant Gillespie was bombing Gaddis. In the blaze of anti-aircraft fire, his plane was set on fire and exploded in midair. Somehow, Gillespie got out and parachuted to Earth. He was captured by the Italians and taken to Tripoli. There, they put him on a submarine to take him and other prisoners to Italy. In the middle of the Mediterranean, the Italian sub was attacked by a British plane and sunk. Lieutenant Gillespie got out and was picked up by a British destroyer, and now he is back here. In fact, he is right here in the studio. I look on him with awe. Lieutenant Gillespie, how in the world did you ever get out of that plane over Gaddis?
Oh, it really wasn't so hard. I was in the nose, of course, and when the plane exploded, we went spinning off by ourselves. I opened the escape hatch, and the centrifugal force just tossed me out.
And then the Italians caught you.
That's right. We were only about 20 miles from Gaddis, and they sent a detail out for us before we could get away.
What were those Italian soldiers like?
They weren't much good. They were dirty little fellows and mixed up uniforms.
And they took you down to Tripoli, then?
That's right. They kept us around Gaddis for a couple of days, and then they put us in a rickety old truck one night, and we started off to Tripoli. The truck kept breaking down, and it took us 15 hours to get there.
Well, what did they do with you when they got you to Tripoli?
Oh, they put us in an old fort, and they kept us there for a week or so. They put a big German stooge in with us who was in a British captain's uniform. The Italians threw him in the door with all kinds of curses and gestures to make it look real, but we spotted him right away.
Well, Lieutenant Gillespie, how did they feed you there?
Soup and camel's meat most of the time.
How was camel's meat?
It's all right if you're hungry. They fed us a lot better on the submarine, though. The Italians feed their submarine crews a lot better than they feed their soldiers. I suppose they have to.
How long were you in that sub?
We left Tripoli about 7, just after dusk. We weren't supposed to leave that night, but the British were raiding the ports, and the Italians got panicky and just pulled out. About 3 the next afternoon, we were attacked.
And what attacked you?
A British Beaufort. He dropped depth charges. That was an awful feeling, sitting there in the dark waiting for the water to start pouring in.
I'll bet it was. Did the Beaufort sink the sub?
No, just crippled us. Then a British destroyer came up and started shelling us. That was when I got out.
Were you in the water long?
Oh, about half an hour, then a destroyer picked me up. Boy, was I glad to get aboard.
I'll bet you were, Lieutenant Gillespie. And now this is Charles Collingwood returning you to New York.
Economic Director Burns has just announced in Washington that shoes will be rationed immediately. The rate will be 3 pairs per person a year. The new order covers all kinds of leather shoes except house slippers and soft-soled infant shoes. We'll have full details from CBS correspondents in Washington as the story develops there later in the program. More news in just a minute. But first, here's Warren Sweeney with a word from Admiral Radio.
All facilities of both great Admiral plants are devoted to producing radio communications equipment for the United States Army and Navy. We'd like to spend a few seconds telling you of the part radio plays in the sea battle. Our Navy is the greatest afloat today, chiefly because it has developed coordinated action to so high a degree. Through radio, the job of every man, every weapon, every ship is accurately woven into an efficient plan of battle. When a plane or submarine spots enemy vessels, it radios the flagship of the fleet. The flagship radios the aircraft carriers to get planes aloft, tells cruisers their positions for battle, orders destroyers to rush specified enemy craft and drop torpedoes. Radio in individual planes coordinates the air fighting. Radio pairs off American battleships with those of the enemy. Radio directs the fire of the big guns. In a fleet action, radio plays its important role on the surface, in the air, and under the sea. Radio weaves the pattern of a victorious sea battle by coordinating the actions of men, weapons, and ships. We Americans can be eternally thankful the United States Navy has given Navy radio men the best possible training for their work and the best possible equipment with which to do that work. It is the best equipment. Admiral is sure of that, for Admiral is building Navy radio and knows the high standards which must be met and are being met by the same workers who produced the high standard radio of peacetime, Admiral, America's smart set. Now here once again for Admiral Radio is John Daly.
In the Southwest Pacific area, for a direct report from that war zone, Admiral Radio takes you now to CBS Australia, William J. Dunn reporting.
As Australia watches intently the news of reported air and sea actions in the Solomons, one fact stands out prominently in the news from the Southwest Pacific area. That fact being the unmistakable increase in Allied air attacks on Japanese bases northeast of this continent, from which aid might be directed to an enemy force further south. During the 8 days ending Saturday, Allied planes based in this area made a total of 36 separate raids on enemy bases or shipping in New Britain, Bougainville, Bucco, and the Admiralty Islands. This is almost double the number of raids on similar bases in the preceding week and covers a much wider area than had been the custom in normal operations. Rabaul, of course,